gutter today, and Steve's Garage Doors was at the same house. So the company I work for does roll-up doors and garage doors and all kind of other things. But the company's name is All Pro Seamless Gutters and More. So there's a lot of people that only know we do gutters. So we'll go to a job site, put up gutters. They need garage doors on that house, and they'll always say, well, we didn't know you did garage doors. So Steve's Garage Doors is over there at the same house, putting up 2 roll-up doors and 2 garage doors. We was just putting up gutters. On that corner of the house, there's so many little rocks and sand, and it's so slippery. I fell twice, I think. It's hard to sit up a ladder stable in that corner there. But I didn't really get hurt that bad. Not at all, really. Where my wrist got cut again for the 3rd time, it's done healed up. Well, it ain't healed up, but it's sealed up. It ain't bleeding. I can use it without it opening back up and bleeding again. It's 4:09. I'm already off work. This week we've been getting off at 4 a lot instead of having to work till 7. Put in the comments. It's been hot, and one of my apple trees is drying up, and I don't think it's going to make it. The other 4 look all right. And I'll go back and water it. Well, once I stop moving, it's over. I'm not going to want to do it. I'm thinking about getting up super early, like maybe start waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just going out there while it's still dark and watering all the trees before I have to go into work. Because it's probably much easier to do that than do it at the end of the day. I had 15 people watching for a second. Oh, hey, Raven Hart. Hey, Raven Hart. I'll stop here. I'm leaving Vidalia. They got a big old Confederate flag flying higher than any American flag, probably in Vidalia right there. I don't know who that's a statue of. Maybe Stonewall Jackson or somebody. I don't know. I feel kind of different about that kind of, I don't know. I'm an American. You know, the Confederacy don't exist no more, you know. I'm not a Mexican. I'm not an Israeli. I'm not a blind patriot, though. It's not. I'm not going to support the government no matter what. Like, I think it was a critical error to get involved in Ukraine. It served no strategic purpose for us. It antagonized Russia for no reason. NATO, like, Ukraine didn't even want to be part of NATO. The CIA went and overthrew the government, put somebody in it before it. So it's not like I just always support America no matter what. A lot of times America's in the wrong. But at the same time, I'm not gonna, you know, I love my country. I love the people in my country. You know, a lot of these wars, I don't support them, but once we're in them, we don't need to lose. Hey, everybody. I really don't think that we need to be going to war with Iran either. And I really don't think they're the threat that people make them out to be. I knew a few Iranians that moved to America when the revolution happened. And they were very polite, very calm, extremely high impulse control. They were doctors. One of them was a doctor. His wife was an architect. And they talked like they never raised their voice. They were always very calm and quiet. I like them, like the ones I met. I don't know the ones that have grown up under Sharia law. Like I don't know what Iran is today. They weren't like the Arabs. The Iranians were. The Persians are. When 9/11, like I always read a lot of history and everything, and so I was like they talk about Americans can't find countries on a map. I could find almost every single country on a map and tell you something about their people, how many different groups of people live there, what religions are there, what resources are there. I just always been interested in that kind of thing. And after 9/11, it was just kind of irritating to me how many people didn't know the difference between an Indian, a Persian, and an Arab. And they would just talk about like the Indians in the gas stations being Hajis at Arab. They weren't even Arabs. It's like they were calling Indians terrorists. It was just really kind of embarrassing, really. Kind of embarrassed that these other Americans, like, I kind of think that when your country is policing the world, you ought to really know something about the people in the other countries of the world. Like, if you're gonna, and I really don't think we should be policing the world, but then I have kind of mixed feelings, like, what's going to happen to world trade if we don't protect world trade from piracy with the Navy? You kind of got to have the U.S. Navy to keep the world order, like the safety of global trade. A lot of nations' economies are dependent upon the American Navy to keep the sea routes safe. So it's kind of hard because I'm divided on it because, like in a lot of ways, I feel like we should mind our own business and not get involved in all these foreign conflicts. But then at the same time, we have to protect global trade but we wouldn't have been in this situation had we not deindustrialized, had we not, got drunk off of cheap labor, cheap foreign labor. And it's more expensive in the long run. Like in the beginning, it feels like it's cheap. Like, hey, let's have all this cheap illegal immigrant labor. And then your grandchildren pay the price for it. Or you're like, let's let China have all the pollution in factories and cheap labor. Let's build everything over there. But then you get into a situation where all your military uniforms, canteen, like everything, medicine, everything's made by them. And then it becomes a liability. Hello. I live in Wheeler County, Georgia, and it seems like everywhere they're building solar panels over farmland. And a lot of the farmers are old and nobody ever wants to farm, and it's like really important of a job. I always wanted to farm, and a lot of people would tell me, you're too smart, you need to do something else. They always felt like because I was smart I should do something else, but like what I just naturally love to do is to farm. That's what I want to do. So, leaning up, reading the comments. I don't have any idea in particular of anything to talk about. I'm just, it's like kind of like a journal. Kind of just, I don't know why. I just say whatever I'm thinking because I'm just on the ride from work to home. I got an hour, so it's the time I could live stream, so I'm just live streaming. But, if it was up to me, which is not up to me, we just wouldn't have even got involved in Ukraine or the Israeli-Iranian conflict. But I just don't understand why we side so much with the Saudis over the Iranians. Like, why do we pick the Sunni over the Shia? Why do we favor Israel so much? I know it's for religious reasons. Like, there's a lot of people who believe they're supposed to just support Israel no matter what. But it seems to be a liability. It doesn't really seem like we get anything out of the deal to be worth it. I think we've given them $30 billion. I forget how much we give the Philippines, but I had somebody, like, it's a lot. I forget how much it is. And they just throw so much trash into the ocean and into the street, into the nothing. It's like there's so many countries we give billions of dollars, and it seems only their political leaders get rich and infrastructure is built to kind of help corporations, but it seems like the country doesn't benefit and we don't benefit. It just seems kind of like a waste of money, you know? It seems like a lot of it's money laundering, a lot of it's kickback. Like they'll give a dictator billions of dollars, he'll give some of the money back to the politicians. It's just robbing the taxpayer. And there's just some stuff like you see people starving to death, dropping dead. You see pallets and pallets and pallets of aid that's just going bad in the sun because they got to wait for somebody to approve getting the aid to the people. And they won't let journalists in the area. And you see the pallets of food rotted. And you see the starved bodies and dead people. And then they say, nobody's starving, but you know it's a lie. And it's just, I hate paying for it. I hate paying for abortion. I hate paying for genocide. I hate paying for regime change. I just hate paying for it. It's really sad. And like somebody was telling me, and I honestly don't know how this works, but somebody was telling me that Pam Bondi has the Epstein files. It's just that a judge has sealed them. And they've got to get a judge's permit. The Department of Justice has to get a judge's permission to unseal them before they can release them to the public. And I was saying, like, if you have that information, even if it's illegal, you should release it to the public. And people were telling me that's not how it works, kiddo. And I'd go look on their Facebook profile. I'm 38. I'm older than you are, you know, like Edward Snowden told the people. Julian Assange told the people. Sometimes the right thing to do is to break the law. So you're saying, well, that's not the way it works, kiddo. She got the information or whatever, but it's illegal to release it. And the judge told her she can't release it. So what? All the children that get molested get no justice? All the politicians and all the religious leaders and all the celebrities just get away with molesting children? Like, I mean, obviously it's the right thing to release the Epstein files. Like, I don't see how they can disagree with me on this. If you've got the Epstein files, I don't care if a judge has sealed it or not. Just to be a decent, good person, you should release it to the public. Like, these people should not get away with these crimes. It's really crazy the audacity that they have to punish us for breaking the law, but then they do the most worst crimes imaginable, you know? They do the absolute worst things you could possibly do, and then they're going to punish us for minor things. Just, how do they have the audacity? Like, how do they have the audacity to go to Epstein's Island, rape a child, and then give us a speeding ticket? You know, that's just crazy. But Epstein wasn't working alone. He was working for the Israeli government. Now, the Israeli government killed Kennedy, took down the Twin Towers, caused the inflation. You know, they do it. And that's why they get away with it. If Epstein had acted alone, it would be a non-issue. But it's really just so Israel can blackmail American politicians and force our hand to fight their wars for them. So that's what it is, you know. The government's compromised by Israel, so they're going to go fight Iran. It's really a shame. And it's really crazy that Israel will not sign any non-proliferation treaty. They have nukes, and they won't let inspectors in. But then they say to Iran, who lets inspectors in, we think you secretly have nukes. You need to be invaded. The hypocrisy is insane. And it really does look like they did abandon nuclear weapons and are solely trying to have nuclear power. And I see nothing wrong with that. Like, let them have electricity. Like, come on now. And Israel's got what they call the Samson option, where they say that if their country was to be destroyed, they'd release all their nukes and nuke the world. So Israel is literally saying, if we think our nation is going to fall, we're going to nuke every other nation. They call it the Samson option. And they're not the ones being inspected. It's just crazy. I don't know how this happened. Like, I think sometimes my brain is too hot to where it's not even healthy. Because I'm driving in Wheeler County and I don't remember, like, my memory, I remember leaving Vidalia. I don't even remember seeing Mount Vernon. I don't even remember seeing Ailey. I'm just like, I'm in Wheeler County now. I guess I was talking the whole time, though. Hello. I think I already made that comment. But you know, a lot of things aren't like you were taught. We really get taught in school like one side of the story. And so much is left out. Like when we hear about Poland being invaded, a lot of people don't even know that used to be Germany. That used to be Prussia. That used to be the cultural center of Germany. There were a lot of German-speaking Christians there, being crucified and being put on poles that cut a part of their stomach out, pull part of their gut out, nail it to the pole and swing them around on the rope and pull their guts out. They were genociding these Germans in Poland. They were crucifying them, raping them, burning them down in churches, starving them. Germany goes to the international community, shows the proof of these atrocities, and says, look at what the communists are doing, do something about it. And they wouldn't do anything about it. So then when they go in to protect these people from being genocided, they're painted as the boogeyman. Everybody attacks them. And then when the Soviet Union comes in and takes over Poland, no one cares. The hypocrisy. Like, people aren't really told the background. Like, a lot of people don't know that transgender surgeries were being done on children in the Weimar Republic. Like in Germany, they had a suicide rate higher than a birth rate. Their farmland was taken after the First War, which wasn't their fault. They were in a mutual protection pact with Austria. Russia attacks Austria. They honor their word and they come to defend Austria. England and France want these various German islands in the Mediterranean and around Japan. So they're like, oh, they're engaged in a war. Let's team up and attack them and declare war on them. Germany did nothing wrong. I'm talking about World War I now. Germany they see it as an opportunity to steal from Germany, these little islands. And they don't count on Germany to invent these good submarines and almost win the war. So then they're in a mess, and Rothschild tells Lord Bellflower, he's like, look, we control America through the press. We'll get America to fight this war and save you if you take Palestine from the Turks and give it to us. And so then they, of course, they don't tell you this. Germany, they paid to put all these ads in newspapers to warn Americans not to ride on that ship, that it was an armed vessel delivering weapons to England and that they were going to sink it. So they said, hey, Americans, don't ride this ship. We're going to sink it. And then they give really cheap tickets. They're like, hey, Americans, ride this ship. Then they sink the ship. I'm talking about World War I now. So then they sink the ship. And so now that's how they tell the Americans that the Germans in World War I are the bad guys. They're like, see, they killed American citizens on this boat. They don't teach us the part in history where Germany pays to put ads in all the American newspapers to warn us not to ride it. They don't tell us it was carrying weapons and it was an armed ship. They don't tell us that part. They don't tell us that little boys are having their dicks cut off to be given transgender surgeries. They don't tell us that part. They don't tell us that after the world teams up with them and signs that treaty, that they take all of Germany's farmland from them and they force them into a situation where they have to sell exports to buy food to not starve to death. And then all of all these different newspapers come out, and the Jews say, we declare war on Germany. Now, this is 6 months before the infamous Night of Broken Glass. Keep this in mind. This is half of a year before Germany boycotts Jewish stores. Half of a year before, Jews in newspapers all over the world say that they declare war on Germany. They've already took their farmland away, and they organize an international boycott on German manufactured goods. This leads Germany to starve to death. This is what causes Germany to starve, forces them into prostitution. This is why they have suicide rate higher than the birth rate. And it's during this time that Jewish psychologists are pushing transgenderism and doing sex surgeries on children. But instead of like America, when they do this to us in America, we just accept it. We don't do anything about it. We hope something to be done about it. We don't do anything about it. But when they done it to Germany, Germany said hell no, and they burnt child pornography. All these books, these perverted psychologists, like the father of psychology, Sigmund Freud, he wrote all this. He was in love with his mama. He thought everybody wanted to have sex with their mama. He based all his psychology on this idea that all love was sexual. He was an absolute degenerate Jewish pervert, pushing degeneracy. That's why his books were banned. The father of transgenderism, his books were being burned. But the Americans weren't told this. The Americans weren't told they're over there burning child porn. They were told these people don't believe in free speech. These people don't believe in free speech and are burning books. They're bad. And that's how it is in America. Like, we're the most propagandized people in the world. And we're never told the full story. Because we're really just meant to bleed for the Jews. We're meant to be their army and bleed for them. So they always get us to fight all their wars, to put their banks in all these other countries. And the American people are always believing that we're the heroes, giving people freedom, that we're the good guys that are saving the world, and it's simply not true. And it's really sad. And you know, the average American wants child molesters to be put to death. The average American doesn't support all this bullshit. But the Jews, they want us to be a host for parasitism. And so they need us to be as liberal as possible, as accepting and tolerant as possible. They need us to be able to embrace everything. They need us to not think. You know, and so, you know, they say that everything we're doing is for freedom. But what is it? The freedom to do evil? The freedom to cut a baby boy's dick off and tell him he's a woman? The freedom for what? The freedom to kill your own babies? The freedom to be a degenerate? The freedom to go kill 20% of a country that never done anything to you? It's insane. And so, like, when 9/11 happened, everybody, and I don't care what they say, everybody but the Dixie Chicks supported that war. After it became popular, people were like, oh, I never supported it. Bush had like 98%, like the most approval rating ever. But it's because we were being lied to. Like, we really believe they just come attack us for no reason. They hated our freedom. You know, it's a lot more. There's a lot more to the story than that. And really, these Masons, they never wanted us to be free. They just sold us on this idea of freedom to get us to overthrow the Christian kings so that the Rothschild Bank could take over. It wasn't about freedom. It was about somebody else collecting the taxes. And it's still not about freedom. All the building permits, all the regulations, they've never been about freedom. It's always been about usurping the will of the American people and getting us to pay for and bleed for them to build this dystopian one world government where everybody who's not a Jew is a slave of the Jew. That's what it's always been. And the people who started the American Revolution were not heroes. They weren't. They were con men. The Hellraiser Club, you know, that Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Paine and somebody else I can't think of right offhand. It might have been Thomas Jefferson. They had a little building in England. When that got tore down and they started digging around, they found sacrificial dead bodies all up under that building where these men worshiped the devil. They weren't these theists that believe that God just left everything going like they tell you. They weren't these good Christian men like people tell you. They understood that the vast majority of the American people were Christians, so they could not run saying, hey, I'm a Satanist. They wouldn't get any support. They had to pretend to be Christian. So like people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, they were Satanists who pretended to be Christian. Really, I say Satanist, but they were Kabbalists. They followed Jewish mysticism. They were Masons. They put a little Jew cap on their head and they go to the Wailing Wall. Why do you think they do that? And Skull and Bones, they say that, they declare that they're at war with the Gentiles. So basically, some Jews pretended to be Christians. They convinced Christians that their oppressors were Christian kings that they needed to remove. And then through inflation, controlling the printing of money, they stole generational wealth. They stole the wealth of the entire country, and they used it to build a one-world government. A lot of your ego in this whole thing. A lot of your pride is tied up in it, and a lot of your self-worth is tied up in the idea that you're going around and you're bringing freedom to the world, and that you're protecting nations, make sure that they have a Rothschild bank. You're invading nations so that every single currency in the world, even though it has an appearance of being different, is all the same. So that there can be a one world currency. You're just building the infrastructure so that nobody can buy anything or sell anything without them knowing. And Bill Gates, by the way, he's a Jew. Bill Gates has said that they're going to have an electronic tattoo, and that way that no one can. That way there won't be any non-compliance to Agenda 2030. And who does he think he is? Who does Bill Gates think he is to tell them you have to have an electric tattoo to where we can take your money whenever we want. We can shut your money off whenever we want. We can control what you can buy or sell, and we know everything you buy or sell. Who gave them the right to do this? And you think the audacity of somebody to feel that they have the right to do this. But it becomes clear when you start learning more about what these people believe. For instance, they don't believe that they can steal from us because they believe that we're their property. It's forbidden for the non-Jew to have a Jew as a slave or as a sex slave, but the Talmud says that it's permissible for Jews to have non-Jews as sex slaves and slaves. And it says they can't steal from us because we're their property. That's why they believe they have the right to put a chip in us where we can't buy or sell without them knowing. That's why they feel that they have a right to shut down our money if they want to, and tax us when they want to, and force us into compliance to the 2030 agenda. It's because we're not Jews. So they believe we're just their property, we're just here to be their slaves. It's time the world wakes up and sees it. Now, there's a no. And I want to say this, right? I know it's not everything Jew. I know that. But what I will say is there's a lot of apologies for the Jews that's unwarranted because it's a lot more of them. It's not just the Rothschilds. It's a lot of Jews have this mentality. If you really push them and ask them, they really believe the world would be better off if they were in charge of it. They really believe they're smarter than us. And they really do believe they should be running stuff. If you really push them, they'll admit to it. Most of them will admit to it. And like communism is a scam, folks. Don't fall for the scam of communism. That was always a plan to just steal the wealth of nations and make the whole nation a slave to the Jew. That's all it's ever been. Karl Marx, not only was he a Satanist, his grandfather was a rabbi. He started communism, but he starts the Bavarian Illuminati. They go and they overthrow all the Christian kings. The Masons find greedy non-Jews that they can network with, because see, they already are international. The Jews are already living in all the countries. So that's what they could give the non-Jew, the greedy non-Jew that wanted to go be a Mason to have more money. But really, they gain more power by connecting to the non-Jews than they ever give power to the non-Jews. But the first Masonic temple, Solomon's temple, every single member was a Jew. And all the non-Jews that are Masons are useful idiots. They're sending money to enslave their own people. They're really just a bunch of, but the communists, the Bavarian Illuminati, the Masons, they're all working together. They're parts of a singular plan that Kennedy talked about. Kennedy talked about a highly, like a super organized conspiracy. He was talking about how he called upon that the American people would have to be involved to help him. And he made money that wasn't part of the Rothschild money system. And that's why he got killed. And then you had a Mason in the White House, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and it was back to normal. You know, it was back to, they control everything again. Kennedy had a lot of faults, but he believed that people were born to be free and independent in all countries. I think he was idealistic and kind of gullible and naive about some things, but I think he was a good man. And he wasn't no coward either. And he was a veteran. And, you know, but I think they thought that they would be able to control Kennedy because he was a Catholic. They thought that, you know, that through the crypto Jews, they infiltrated the Jesuits and they took over the Catholic Church. Today, the Vatican is just, it's a puppet. They're under the control of the Jews too. There's nothing, you know, it's a lot of Catholics haven't woken up to that yet. But I forgot where I was going with this. Something about the Jesuit. Oh yeah, they thought, you know, like Jackie Kennedy was connected with the Jesuits. Kennedy was a Catholic, so they felt like he would just do whatever the Pope said, but he didn't. And so then they had a real problem. And he was trying to be a second Andrew Jackson to free America. Now, Andrew Jackson, they'll tell you he's a bad man, but I want you to go look when they tell you he's a bad man and they cite the sources. It's always Jewish-owned newspapers they're citing, you know. He freed America. We were almost enslaved by the Rothschild banking system. He freed us from it. He paid off the national debt. They said he hurt the economy because the stock market dipped, but the cost of living got super cheap. Everybody was able to afford homes, land. The cost of living went down for the American people. The national debt was paid off. He did not hurt the economy. Now, some people who just printed up money and stole from the whole nation, it hurt them, but it didn't hurt the real American people. And so, like, you know, like they say, well, he was against the Indians. Well, so was everyone during his day. And the Seminole Indians were crossing the border into Georgia, and they were raping people. They were killing babies and old people and doing all kind of stuff, and they were at war with us. And we fought them, and we kicked their ass pretty bad. And then when they lost, everybody felt sorry for them. But they didn't feel sorry for the babies they picked up and bashed their brains out of their head. The Seminoles didn't feel sorry for that. They didn't feel sorry for the women they raped or the slaves they carried off. They didn't feel sorry for none of that. And the Spanish and the British and the French were going to keep giving them guns. And they were going to keep crossing over the border, and they were going to keep attacking us. And so he went in there and took over Florida and sent them to Oklahoma. And now we look back. Let me tell you something. You know, my great-granddaddy's mama was a Native American. And my daddy his mama, on her daddy's side of the family, was Native American. But they would take, some of these Native Americans would take and tie you to a pole and then cut your eyelids off and let your eyelids dry out. They would, a lot of them, a lot of Native Americans believed that the gods had to be fed pain. And if you didn't feed them pain, they were going to put you in pain. And so most of these tribes, they were nice to the people in their tribe, but they were extremely brutal to people outside of their tribe. And they would grab them up, not just the Aztecs. I'm talking about North American Indians. It's not like Hollywood. The Jew would have you believe they were just like all for peace. They were a bunch of hippies and that they were all a peaceful people. But they went to war with each other. They had slaves. America got rid of slaves before Native Americans did. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that they would torture babies, men, women, and children. They'd torture you for days. They get healthy adrenochrome in your brain, make a soup off of it. They don't tell you this. They just tell you, wow, look at what these white people said about these Native Americans. They called them godless savages. Wow, that's very racist. There's some really bad people to call them savages. But this is another thing I'm telling you about. They give you a really one side of history. They don't tell you why they call them savages. And I'm not saying, that the white man was the good guy. A lot of times both sides are the bad guy. Most of the time, both people are greedy and coveting the other people's stuff. Most of the time, it's not like there's a good guy and a bad guy. And normally there's a mix. Normally there's there could be, you can have an army where some people in the army, their heart's in the right place. They really believe that they're spreading freedom. And then you got other people in the army that's like, I've always wanted to be able to kill somebody legally. And I'm a sociopath and I just love killing people. So you can have, and then you've got leaders, you got people that believe the propaganda, people who don't, people who are just trying to make money. But most of the time, it's like the super rich people in both countries are just trying to get a little richer and they're killing each other. And they get along really and secretly, they get along with each other better and feel like each other is their peers rather than the people of their country. Like I'm saying, like the King of England can relate more to the King of France than he can the peasants. And they'll go play chess together, hang out with each other, and intermarry with each other. And then they'll each send their own people to go fight and kill each other so that they can move the borders around like they're playing a game of chess. And a lot of times, but I will say this, the people are complicit in it. Everybody always wants to blame the leaders and put all the blame on them and pretend like they're so pure and innocent and the leaders are the bad guys. But the only reason that they're able to do it is because we're cowards. Like, look at this Jeffrey Epstein stuff. A lot of our politicians are raping children. A lot of celebrities are raping children. But guess what? Americans are still going to buy their movies. And there's only 100 senators. There's 320 million Americans. If we wanted to, we could get handcuffs, go up there and arrest every one of them, and they couldn't do shit about it. But we're not organized. We're all selfish. We're all looking after our own self. Meanwhile, they're cooperating with each other. They are having impulse control. They're delaying gratification. They're saying, I'm going to deny myself pleasure now to have more in the future. And it's why they're able to do what they're able to do. Part of it is our fault. It's not just them. But we absolve ourselves of responsibility. We're like, there's nothing we can do. They have stealth bombers. There's 320 million of us. They have tanks. Yeah, but we have farm equipment, Caterpillar equipment. We got all kind of heavy machinery. We could dig trenches. Like, we could build whole cities and tear them down. Like, it's not that we can't. It's that we're enslaved in our minds. In our minds, we believe that they're so much more powerful than they are. But also, it's just like, we just aren't organized. We just don't get along. And then some people will say, well, yeah, they propagandize us to be that way or whatever. But, like, I don't know. People need to take personal responsibility. And it's kind of hard to, like, where's the lines at for collective responsibility? But the way a human is, okay, so if you're playing tug of war, two sets of people are playing tug of war. When you add more people, the force on the rope is stronger because you've added more people. But when you measure the force of how much each person is pulling, people pull less the more people you add, because people get less responsible the more people you throw in it. Like, teamwork helps to a point, and then it starts to hinder, because after everyone's involved, no one feels like all of the burden is on them as an individual. They feel like they can kind of just leave some of it up to the group, and everybody starts feeling that way. Like, you'll see these videos in China where somebody like steals from somebody or kills somebody or kidnaps somebody, and everybody just does nothing. Nobody helps nobody. Everybody walks around like robots. That's because the government's so powerful, it normally takes care of all these things. And because they have all the communist social programs, nobody feels individual responsibility. They've left it to the collective. And the collective is not a conscious being that can make decisions, you know? All the work's got to be done at an individual level. And so if I ever talk about something where I see a problem and I complain about it, somebody would tell me, well, there's nothing you can do. And that's simply not true, because, like, so do you think that there's nothing I can do, but Julius Caesar can do something? Alexander the Great can do something. Oh, Alexander Graham Bell invented a telephone. Like, all these great men of history can do it, but you can't do it. It's just a lie and a cop-out. It's not that we can't, it's just that we don't. I got home from work. Brittany didn't eat all her pizza. I got a friend who is an atheist who lives in a Muslim country. And so he's like a closet atheist. And he really wants to try ham. And a lot of Muslims are like that. Like, they want that. It's like they're curious. They want to try pork. And I'm just like, why? Like, all the other things they forbid you to do, the one thing you want to do is like try pork. What about try psychedelics? What about try? I'm not a good influence. Maybe. What about pray 4 times a day instead of 5? Really, like, they asked me, and they're like, everybody says it's so good. I honestly think that beef and chicken is better than pork. I don't think they're really missing out. Bacon is pretty good, though. As a kid, I didn't like it. I was like, that looks like a scab. I don't want that. And then I'd take I'd get a flamethrower, but take the bacon off. And one day I just ate the bacon. The bacon cheeseburger is so good. The bacon cheeseburger. It's like, you got to be a very specific person to be able to eat a bacon cheeseburger. First off, you can't be lactose intolerant. So most Asians, South Americans, Africans, y'all are out. Most of y'all can't have it just because of the cheese. And then you put the bacon. That gets rid of the Muslims and the Jews. They can't have it. The Jews can't even put the cheese with the burger. And then, so it's like, the bacon cheeseburger is probably the whitest food that exists. That's probably, I mean, I know it's not traditionally a European food, but like, it's pretty much for us and no one else. Like, who else can have a bacon cheeseburger? I know that there are Asians and South Americans that are not, and Africans that are not lactose intolerant. But if you look at there's like the African tribes that have cattle that are not lactose intolerant. Their Y chromosome is I forget what it is, R1B, R1A, one of the, like, it's the same as the Indo-Europe. There's 2 main ones for Indo-European people. And that's who they are on their Y chromosome. They've just mixed with Africans to the point that they just look African. But way back a long time ago, some Indo-European horse type people went into Egypt and went down into Africa, but then they're kind of stopped. Like they can't bring their horses but so far because of that tsetse fly, whatever it's called in the tropics. It just kills horses. Nowadays, they probably got some kind of pill they can give the horse or something. But for a lot of history, that's why you couldn't have horses in Africa. I know you could have them in Egypt, and I know Egypt is Africa, but I mean, you just couldn't have them in tropical Africa. You could have them in North Africa, but you couldn't have them like down in the tropics. Like you might be able to have them up there in North Egypt, but you start going into I don't really know where the line is, the exact point where this fly lives that you can't bring horses, but it's a pretty big deal. So they could only, they would have took over the whole world if it hadn't been for that, because it's like everyone else is lactose intolerant, but you're not. So when you drink milk, you get 3 times the calories of other people. And then you have the horse and the cow. So you can move around really fast. You can move around with your food really fast. And no one has it yet. No one has, like, you've got the wheel, so they spread out really fast throughout Europe. Like, there were chariots in Egypt and there were chariots in Britain. They spread out really fast into Pakistan, into India, into Egypt, all throughout the Middle East, all through Russia, Europe. These people spread out super fast. And then they're kind of like, there's a constant like blending of cult. Like throughout history, you'll have 2 great powers clash with each other and they'll fight with each other. And in the process of one conquering the other, they become a lot like them. And you get some kind of new culture that's a combination of the other 2. And sometimes somebody will conquer a nation, and that nation will adopt the culture of the conqueror. But there's a lot of times the conqueror adopts the culture of the conquered. And so it's like militarily, we've conquered you, but then like spiritually, you've conquered us. It's like there's a lot of that goes on. And so when war happens, it's the greatest struggle. It's like way more challenging than football, And you've got to be able to be the best at organizing manpower and logistics and everything. So whoever is like the absolute best at that is most likely going to win. And so a lot of times it's a benefit for the people that got conquered that they even got conquered because they wind up with better leadership. And not always. I mean, of course, really nothing's ever perfect. There's always trade-offs. Almost any positive change makes some kind of negative change somewhere else. You can't really have everything. And there's no like perfect solution. So it's like there's negative and positive things about every culture. And normally to get something, you have to give up something. You can't have it all. And so it's like, like there were some downsides to having Christian kings rule over Europe. It kind of probably slowed some science down somewhat. And social mobility was probably hindered somewhat. But you could not just have a foreign group of people come into your country and start a bank and buy up your media and pay off all your politicians and start an Epstein Island ring. You couldn't really do that the same kind of way. We were kind of protected. So the trade-off is you get to vote now, but now there's no one to stop the Rothschilds. Before, which I guess the kings had already failed before because the Bank of England got taken over. You ever hear that thing where they talk about that this one king was like not even, like he couldn't have even got his wife pregnant. He was like away at battle. And they say some archer that looked just like the kings of England are not even legitimate because some archer slept with the queen or something. But then they are, because the rule of kings is treason to rebel against the king. Unless you win, then you're the king. It's like, how dare you raise a hand against God's anointed? Wait, you were able to conquer the king? Well, God must be on your side. I guess you're the king. There's a lot of things that's weird like that. Like murder, illegal. War, legal. Stealing, illegal. Taxes, plundering other nations, legal. It's like something to do with the scale. If you do a little bit of it, it's bad. If you do a whole bunch of it, it's perfectly fine. And that's because a lot of these rules are arbitrary, not real, and it's just whoever has the power makes the rules. Y'all probably don't want to watch me eat, but I haven't ate. I woke up at 6:20 and I didn't eat. Well, I was about to say I didn't eat anything all day. I forgot. I did eat some peanut butter crackers. But besides those 6 peanut butter crackers that come in a little pack, I ain't ate nothing all day. So that's why I'm eating the pizza. Normally I wouldn't do that. Normally I'd be like, dang, I'm not going to just eat this in front of you. I'll share with you. I'll give you one before I just eat it in front of you. But that used to be the rule of the South until the economy got bad enough. You know, you never ate. If somebody come over, you didn't eat unless you give them food too. And if you went and bought you some food and somebody was going to be there, you got them something too. And then as the economy got worse and worse and worse, the economy got worse. It's like, I'll buy something for the kids, the women and the kids, but not the men. Then it gets to where, well, I'll buy something for the kids. And then it got to buy your own food, damn it. Like, damn, I'm not your slave. It ain't my job to feed you. Get a job. The morality is different. Because before it was like, don't tempt someone to covet. So don't eat this food in front of somebody because then they might want it, like. And you could look at it another way. You could be like, well, they didn't earn it. Like, why should I have to buy them anything? Like, they go buy their own food. Like, what I'm saying is, I don't think that it's like a real moral law. Like, I don't think God said it. Like, I don't think God's like, you shall not eat in front of anybody unless you buy them food too. But like this type of communist type value in the South, I think it just come from, I don't know, people just empathize with the covetous person more than the earner. I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, I know what I'm talking about. I had a point to make that I thought about a few days ago. I forgot most of it. I thought I would remember it. I don't. To me, now this might have been me and Brittany just taking pieces off of the cake. It kind of looks to me like the dog got on the table and got into this cake. You know you ain't supposed to have chocolate. It's not good for your liver, dog. Did you do this? Did you? What's that mean? What? Did you do this? Did you? One thing I don't understand about Islam or whatever Is they're like, you can't have a dog. That's gross. But you can have a cat. You can have a cat that carries toxoplasmosis, a parasitic bacteria that infects your brain and gives you dementia. That's okay in Islam. You can have the cat, but not the dog. I mean, you should have banned them both if you're going to ban them over, like, hygiene, I guess. I don't know. Something about having a parasitic bacteria crawling around in my brain to me seems dirtier than the dog to me. To me, it ain't worth it. And I don't know. That's not really true. I guess it's true, kind of. Like a little bit I like cats, but not really. Like I like them. I just don't want one. Like I'll watch one play, and that's kind of amusing, but it's kind of not. Because they're too predictable. They're too they're almost like a reptile, you know, like no impulse control. Like if something smaller than them moves, they're going to attack it every time. Like a cat's like that. And so it's not but a little bit amusing to me because they're just too predictable. They're unpredictable in other ways, though. Like they might just out of nowhere spaz out, but it's predictable that they will out of nowhere spaz out. What are they doing? Sunny Star Light XX87, hello? I wonder if you're the same age as me. I was born in 1987. Y'all needed to see me drink tea. Y'all needed that. I don't know why. I just felt like sharing that. Weird how we've... Excuse me. It's kind of weird how we've changed as a society to where we used to be like super about our privacy and worried about our privacy. And now we're like, here, I'm going to post on Facebook. Here's a picture of the food I ate. You know, it's just a weird. It's also, to me, and I'm about the age of half of y'all and younger than, I don't remember right offhand, but I think about a quarter of my viewers are my age. And maybe half of my viewers are older, and maybe another quarter is younger than me or something like that. So I don't know that y'all remember it, but I was born in 1987. And I've seen the culture of America drastically change in my short 38 years. And come on a little bit. Come on a little bit. Come on, get in the house. Come on. Oh, you're going to make me work, huh? A little bit. But the culture's changed a lot in many ways. And it's been the chief driver in the change of culture in America is television programming. Probably second to that would be the news media, but really more so than the news media, fictional television is what sets all the trends for the cultural norms in the society. Kind of a monkey see, monkey do type deal. And so you can pretty much see where the culture is going to go by what kind of movies are being made. And it's a sad thing, but most Americans, all their ideas of history comes from fictional TV, not actual firsthand sources. And, oh, there's Lee. He owed me $20. Hey, what about $20? I'm going to go get my $20. He owes me $20. If he ain't got it and got to wait the paycheck, till tomorrow, I don't care. But he ain't never going to steal from me. He always pays me back. But like what I was saying is about there's a few cultural changes. One is that it is socially acceptable to use profanity now. Even I do it. That used to not be a thing. Another thing is just 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, if someone had somebody in their family that was gay, they would be embarrassed by it. They'd be ashamed of it. And the person that was gay would be ashamed of it. They would be in the closet. They would be hiding it. They'd be like, oh, secretly, I'm a degenerate. I don't want no one to know. But now it's like celebrated. And so it went from being a criminal offense with the death penalty to it being like seen as some sort of moral obligation to bring homosexuality through the world, So the culture's changed a lot. And you can see how it changed by the media, how they done it. First, what they started doing is they started using comedy. They would make like, what's this show called? Two is Company or Three is Company, something like that. He was always the clown. The homosexual in the TV was always like the clown. It was made to be funny because you can get a lot of people to accept things through humor that you couldn't otherwise get them to accept. And then they went from being portrayed as like funny clown to make it seem harmless. Then it was they're victims. You need to empathize with them. And then it was they're not mentally. They took it off of the list of psychological diseases. It was a mental disorder. They took it off the list there. That allowed for there to be pride parades because it would have been silly while it was listed as a mental disorder to go about and have a gay pride parade. You'd just be seen as absolutely crazy. And there was not a single scientific bit of evidence cited to take it off the list. It was just homosexuals got on become psychologists, got on the board and took it off for political reasons. That then allowed people to have all these where they're saying they're proud of it and everything. And it just went from there, but I'm about to end this. But you can see how they change the culture through television. And you can see the steps in the way they do it and the way they normalize things that are not normal. They normally start with comedy.